beautiful booktube-ish people. I am here to have a little discussion with you guys about overhyped books. I first got this idea when my friend Dayla, and on here she's Dayla FM, and on Tumblr she's Book Addict 24/7, and she made a blog post about how society is affected by recommendations, and that really got me going, and I felt like I should have a discussion about that. And then also my friend Whitney over at Whitney Books made a discussion about overhyped books, and so I just really wanted to make a video response to that, so we will just talk about that. First, I want to give you a definition of what overhyped means. According to Siri, overhyped is that has been promoted or publicized excessively. So I think in the booktube community, books are really hyped. Certain books like The Fault in Our Stars and Harry Potter and a whole bunch of other things, and I know I do that too, and it's not necessarily, hype is not necessarily a bad thing, but I'm not sure if it's good either. So one thing that Dayla pointed out in her post that I thought was really interesting is that these days, if you ask someone, oh, where did you find that book that you love, or your favorite book, or where, people would say recommendations or because everyone else was loving it. But she was thinking about, what about the books that people don't love and give a bad review, or the ones that aren't really big but are still good? How are those books going to get hype, or how are they going to get publicity? Because if so much hype is going into one or three or just a small package of books, all the books that are outside that are kind of suffering a little bit. And Danny Marks over at his channel had been talking about propping and all that kind of stuff, and this kind of ties into that too. I'm going to tell you a little thing that I do. So before I found BookTube, before I found Tumblr, I only had Goodreads. Before Goodreads, life wasn't good. When I was on Goodreads, I didn't know which books were huge and which books were not, because I was only friends with the people that I knew in real life. So what I would do is I would go on barnesandnoble.com and look at the book that was purchased the latest, and I would go onto Goodreads and just go through those lists. They usually show you like the first 100. I would go to the thousands, and I would just read the synopsises, and I would want to read that book based on the synopsises. So that's something huge for me. I always try and find books that aren't really well known, because recently I've had so many books that have been overhyped that I just kind of run to those books that nobody really knows about, so then it can kind of be like my own little package. But the only problem is those books can't be my own little package because they're supposed to be shared with the world. So how is it supposed to be shared with the world if nobody else thinks that it deserves the hype, because they believe that the books that have been hyped over and over should have all the hype? So it's been kind of a problem with me recently that books that everyone on the booktube community has been recommending, and everyone in my school and everyone on Tumblr is like, oh my gosh, Gabby, you have to read this book. I've been putting those books off forever because I don't want to read them, because recently I've been reading those books. I read 2 or 3 of them recently, and they were good, but my expectations just were up super high, and it didn't reach that, so I didn't enjoy the book as much. But if the book wasn't hyped as much as it was, I probably would have liked it better. And I don't really think that's anyone's fault, because if you enjoyed the book, you're going to share it with people. But the problem with that is that people's expectations get super duper high, and they just fall. What happens for people who haven't read The Fault in Our Stars yet, or haven't read The Book Thief yet, or haven't read all of these amazing books, that they just are living off on the hype, and maybe it's not going to be that amazing book for them, but it's still going to be really good. How are they going to feel about those books? I was thinking in a couple of days I'm probably going to post a video about 10 standalones that you guys probably haven't heard about or that need more recognition, because one thing that I realized on BookTube, a lot of people say, oh, I wish there were more young adult standalones, and I wish there weren't as many series. But I usually just sit there and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I don't know where you guys are looking or if you are only going off recommendations, but there are so many YA standalones out there. It's just that you kind of have to dig for them. So I'm going to make a video in a couple of days about 10, maybe a little bit more YA standalones that I haven't seen on the booktube community, and if I have, they aren't really getting the hype, or not the hype, but the recognition that I think they need to be getting. So I really want to know what you guys think about this. Do you only solely get your books from recommendations? And if you do, how do you feel when a book doesn't live up to the hype that has been around it? Also, do you look for books on Goodreads or anywhere else besides social media? Actually, do you look for books outside of social media, or just like go into your library and search and read stuff that look interesting to you? Because Dayla did a really good point that most people solely read books off of recommendations, and even though recommendations save my life all the time, because some books I would have never read if they weren't recommended to me, the only problem with that is that those small books, those books that are published and people have read them but they don't have that much hype around them, or they're not getting the recognition that they need to be, are really just sitting on the shelves out there, and it hurts, you know? It just hurts thinking about that, because someone's book is sitting on the shelf. And I'm not saying that all books are amazing and all books have to be read, because there are some out there that are probably really boring and you don't want to read. But the books that I can think of that I'm probably going to have in my video, they're good books. It's just that nobody that I know knows of them. And if they do, they don't really put hype around them because other books are so much more hyping, if that makes sense. So I would really just like it if you guys could continue this in the comments. I will reply to every comment down there. I really am interested in hearing what you guys have to say. Down in the comments below, I will leave Whitney's video that I watched and Dayla's post, because that Dayla's post really got me talking. It's really what got my mind going on this concept. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later in the comments.